Traveler, seeker, you who question the shadows between lives, have you ever felt as though this world wasn't meant for you? A lingering sense that the pain you carry was something you agreed to long before your first breath? If so, you're not alone. For centuries, ancient mystics whispered of a moment before birth, a place beyond time where each soul, unclothed by flesh and freed from memory, stood at a crossroads, a space between death and life, where you would decide not only who you would be, but how you would suffer, love, fall, rise, and finally leave this world. This was not idle superstition. In the teachings of Plotinus, the founder of Neoplatonism, it was believed that before entering the physical realm, the soul gazed upon the tapestry of lives yet unlived. There it would choose the body, the parents, the trials and triumphs meant to shape its return to the eternal source. In his Enneads, Plotinus wrote that no life is truly random. Each is a path deliberately selected for its lessons, its pains, and its possibilities. But the Greeks were far from alone. In the sacred texts of ancient Egypt, in the cryptic Hermetic writings of Alexandria, and among the firelit rites of forgotten tribes, echoes of this same belief surfaced time and again. That birth is not a beginning, but a contract, a vow made by your soul in a place no living tongue can name. And yet, if this is true, if each of us chose this life, its darkness and its light, what does that mean for fate, for guilt, for the shape of your very existence? Did you choose your heartbreak, your poverty, your death, or was it placed upon you by forces older than gods? That, traveler, is the path we walk tonight. This episode, we descend into the forgotten beliefs of those who claim to remember what came before birth. From the sands of ancient Thebes to the secret chambers of Delphi, from Hermetic philosophers to exiled mystics, we will seek the hidden doctrine of the chosen life and what it means for you, here, now, watching this. If you enjoy exploring the forgotten and forbidden, like this video, share it, leave your thoughts below, and follow VoidTalk for more journeys into the unknown. And so, seeker, are you ready to remember what your soul once knew? Let us begin. Imagine this, traveler. You stand in a chamber deep beneath the desert sands of ancient Thebes. The flickering glow of oil lamps reveals walls carved with forgotten hieroglyphs, each symbol a story of the soul's passage beyond death and before life. Priests in linen robes move silently through the haze of burning myrrh, while a single figure kneels before a stone altar. In her hands, the Book of Coming Forth by Day, what the world would later call the Egyptian Book of the Dead. But tonight, she does not read for the dying. She reads for the unborn. Among the ancients of Kemet, it was believed that every soul, upon departing one life, entered the Duat, the liminal underworld of trials and mirrors. There, weighed by the feather of Ma'at, the soul faced not only judgment for its deeds, but a choice, to dissolve into the source or to return to the mortal plane. And should it choose rebirth, it would be guided to the Hall of Choices. This sacred chamber was no myth. Descriptions of it appear shrouded in metaphor across funerary texts and temple inscriptions. It was said that the soul stood before the keepers of destiny and was shown visions of lives it could inhabit, some easy, some cruel, some brief, others burdened with centuries of shadow. The soul would select a mother, a lineage, a fate. It was not punishment, it was purification. In a fragment from the Papyrus of Ani, a priest writes, "The soul, before its return, is asked, 'Will you carry the burden of the broken or the bliss of the blind?' And the wise choose burden, for through it the heart becomes light as Ma'at." To the Egyptians, suffering was not random misfortune, it was a sacred contract. Every scar was a memory of a choice made in the Hall of Choices, every grief a lesson accepted. And so, when calamity struck, a person did not ask, "Why me?" They asked, "What did I seek to learn by this?" In this belief system, the concept of victimhood did not exist in the way we perceive it now. The soul was the architect of its own trials. This view cultivated a strange resilience. To endure was to honor one's ancient vow. To suffer with dignity was to ascend. It is perhaps why, even in their tombs, the Egyptians left instructions not only for the afterlife,
but for the life yet to come. And while modern man scoffs at such fatalistic mysticism, the echoes of this creed remain. You hear it in those inexplicable moments of déjà vu, in the quiet certainty that you've met someone before, though no memory exists, in the unshakable pull toward a path you fear, yet cannot abandon. Yet the Egyptians, for all their wisdom, were not alone in believing the soul chose its burdens. Beyond the Nile, across seas and centuries, another people spoke of a similar moment, but for them, it was not a choice. It was a negotiation.
Now, Seeker, let us leave the sands of Kemet and ascend the marble steps of ancient Delphi. The air here tastes of wild thyme and old stone. The great oracle of Apollo speaks in riddles, her lips stained with vapors from the sacred chasm. But beneath the shrine, deeper still, lies a chamber the public was never meant to enter. The Greeks called it Ananke's room, the place of necessity. It was here, according to the writings of Plotinus and his teacher Ammonius Saccas, that the soul did not simply choose a life, it bargained for one. In the Neoplatonic tradition, life was not an assignment handed down by capricious gods, but a negotiation between the soul and the forces of fate. The soul, desiring to ascend closer to the One, the divine source, would select a life whose trials matched the imperfections it sought to burn away. The greater the burden, the brighter the soul would shine in its return. In Plotinus's Enneads, it is written, "Each soul enters a body as a self-chosen exile, seeking the sorrow by which it may recall its divine nature." Imagine that. Every heartache you have ever known, every betrayal, every grief, every moment of despair, not meaningless, not cursed by accident, but a sorrow you yourself negotiated to carry. The Greeks believed this knowledge was too dangerous for the masses. For if men understood their misery was once a price they willingly paid, they might no longer fear death nor submit to the gods. And a world without fear, traveler, is a world impossible to govern. This creed bled quietly into the philosophies of the Stoics, who taught that one must love their fate, amor fati, not merely accept it, because in doing so, one aligns with the ancient agreement of their soul. The Stoics may have left behind the gods, but they kept the contract. In our age, this ancient principle manifests as the quiet, inexplicable attraction to certain lives, lovers, and tragedies. That strange recognition when you meet a stranger whose eyes seem older than time. The pull towards certain mistakes, as if you were meant to stumble there. Modern psychology names it pattern repetition. The ancients called it soul debt. And yet, the Greeks' belief in negotiation was far kinder than what others would later claim. For some mystics spoke of a far darker truth, that not all souls chose freely. Beyond Greece, in the flickering candlelight of secret orders, another belief took shape, one where choice was stripped and only silence remained.
Come closer now, traveler. The air grows heavier here. We've left behind the marbled sanctuaries of Delphi and descended into the suffocating shadows of Alexandria's forbidden libraries. Beneath the torchlit catacombs, amidst scrolls no priest would dare touch, an order known only as the Hermetic Circle once gathered. It was here they spoke of a truth darker than any told before, that not all souls chose freely. Some were forced into flesh by ancient debts, karmic chains, or the designs of powers older than time itself. According to fragments from a lost Hermetic text, what scholars call the Book of Veils, before rebirth, every soul was summoned to a place beyond stars, where a council of unseen forces laid out the contracts of fate. Some souls, luminous and unburdened, chose their trials with clear eyes. Others, shrouded in the residue of past sins or ancient pacts, were bound to accept lives dictated by necessity or punishment. The most chilling belief within these writings was of the Pact of Silence. It was said that before descending into life, the soul was made to drink from the river of forgetting, Lethe as the Greeks named it, sealing away all memory of its origin, choices, and purpose. Only through pain, loss, or death would fragments sometimes slip through. One passage survives. And the soul, upon signing the scroll of return, shall be made to forget, lest knowledge unravel the world. For man who remembers his origin would no longer obey the wheel. The ancients feared this knowledge, traveler. To them, a person who recalled their pre-life vow was a threat, a being ungovernable, unbound by fear of death, indifferent to the edicts of kings and gods alike. Those few who claimed to awaken their memory were declared mad, exiled, or quietly made to disappear. But the mark of this belief remains upon us. In the unexplainable sense of yearning for something no earthly thing can satisfy, in the persistent ache for a place never seen, a voice long unheard, in those recurring dreams of faces unknown, yet heartbreakingly familiar. Modern thinkers dismiss it as ancestral memory, subconscious invention, yet those who walk the occult paths know better. They call it the echo of the pact, the soul's dim, stubborn refusal to forget entirely. And while the Hermetic orders hid their truths beneath layers of symbol and cipher, in the East, others spoke openly of such memories and the means to reclaim them. To find them, traveler, we must now leave the Mediterranean's embrace and follow the smoke of sacred fires into the forgotten rites of the East.
The path winds eastward now, traveler, past the crumbling temples of fallen empires, beyond the reach of Rome's forgotten legions, where mountains cradle the sky and the air hums with the ancient resonance of mantras long unspoken. Here in the mist-veiled sanctuaries of Tibet and the Himalayas, the belief in the soul's pre-birth journey was not hidden, it was ritualized. Among the monks of the Bon tradition and later Tantric Buddhists, it was taught that every soul, upon leaving one body, entered a liminal realm known as the Bardo, a strange shifting landscape between death and rebirth. But unlike the choices spoken of in Egypt or Delphi, in the Bardo, a soul might find itself utterly powerless. The Tibetan Book of the Dead, or Bardo Total, describes this perilous passage in unnerving detail. There it is written, "The soul, blinded by the brilliance of the clear light, recoils and flees. Chased by the illusions of its own mind, it stumbles toward a womb, drawn by desire, terror, or ancient debt." In these traditions, not every soul was granted the dignity of choice. Some, weighed down by karmic burdens or lured by attachment, would be dragged into incarnation by forces of craving and fear. The circumstances of one's next life, noble or base, serene or hellish, would be dictated by the soul's state at the moment of death and the illusions it could not release. And yet hope was not lost. Within the secret temples of Dzogchen practice, a rite known as the recollection of the before-life oath was whispered of. Through fasting, isolation, and prolonged transmeditation, a practitioner might tear away the veils of forgetting and glimpse the moment their soul made or was denied its fateful choice. A fragment from an oral teaching preserved by a lineage master declares, "He who remembers the womb from which he fled and the vow he could not make becomes as a flame in darkness. No god, no demon, no fate shall bind him." This idea that one could recover the memory of their pre-birth choice or imprisonment has echoed subtly into modern minds. It lingers in accounts of near-death experiences, in children who recall impossible lives, in moments of eerie clarity during illness or the edge of sleep. In the modern world, it survives as a question few dare voice aloud. What if the life I lead was never truly mine? But traveler, there exists yet another belief, whispered in the most secretive orders, one that claims not even death frees the soul from its binding, that some lives are neither chosen nor negotiated, not even forced, but assigned by ancient forces for reasons no man may name. And to uncover this final, most unsettling truth, we must descend one step deeper into the abyss.
The air thickens, traveler. This is no longer the realm of monks or mystics, but of forbidden brotherhoods, orders so secret their very names were spoken only in the dying breath of their elders. In the decaying ruins of Alexandria's deeper vaults, and later in the candle-lit crypts of medieval Europe, certain sects claimed a truth darker than any we have yet unearthed, that some souls are neither free, nor lost, nor wandering. They are claimed.
These secret societies believe that long before the soul reaches any imagined crossroads or hall of judgment, it is already spoken for, marked by ancient entities, bloodline debts, or ancestral bargains forged before time's first breath. In these traditions, a child is born not as a random occurrence, nor as a consequence of karma, but because a lineage's spiritual contract demands a vessel. Whispers of this appear in suppressed occult texts like the Shadow Psalms, wherein it is written, "There are those whose lives are not theirs. Carried within them are the debts of their fathers' sins, the unbroken oaths of blood, and the sigils of spirits long exiled. They are born to die for causes they will never know." In such beliefs, the soul has no voice. The life is assigned, a burden delivered not for personal evolution, but to balance ancient scales. This fate was believed to manifest as inexplicable misfortune, lifetimes of repeating suffering, or an unshakable sense that one's pain belongs to another. Even today, echoes of this survive in certain folk superstitions: the cursed bloodline, the doomed family, the child born unlucky. In modern psychology, it becomes generational trauma passed through unseen threads. Yet what if those threads were not merely emotional? What if they were spiritual chains? Some of these forbidden sects taught rituals of liberation of the claimed, rites of severing soul contracts, burning ancestral oaths, and confronting the ancient forces that marked a bloodline. Few dared perform them, fewer survived them sane. And so, traveler, most lived and still live under burdens never truly their own, never questioning the source of their sorrow. Which brings us to the edge of the abyss. For beyond these beliefs lies one final revelation, a truth spoken of only in dying tongues and half-burned scrolls, a belief that turns every creed before it into shadow. And now, if you dare, we shall cross into it.
Listen carefully now, traveler, for what you're about to hear is not written in any surviving scripture nor spoken aloud in any temple. This is the doctrine of the vanished orders, of the tongues silenced in blood, of the truths buried beneath centuries of deliberate forgetting. The final, most unsettling revelation was this: that before birth, the soul did not merely choose, negotiate, or suffer its assignment. It designed it. In the forbidden teachings of the long-erased Silent Circle of Alexandria, it was believed that every soul, before its descent, stood before a mirror of absolute knowing. In this state, beyond flesh, ego, and fear, the soul could see the precise weight of its past actions, not as punishment, but as pure cause and effect. And then, in a moment of terrifying clarity, it would design a life whose every triumph, heartbreak, betrayal, and death was meticulously crafted as a lesson for itself. But here lies the horror. The soul, unclouded by mortal weakness, would choose not the easiest path, but the one most certain to break it. Because only through total collapse, unbearable loss, or unanswerable suffering could the deepest illusions be shattered. A fragment from an exiled mystic, preserved only through oral transmission, recounts: "In the realm before breath, the soul weeps not for what it must endure, but for what it must become. And thus it chooses the blade over the balm, the tormentor over the lover, the abyss over the crown." The ancients feared this teaching above all, for it implies that every horror, every injustice, every child buried too young, or life drowned in grief was not inflicted by gods, demons, or fate, but authored by the soul itself. Such a belief could not be allowed to survive. What empire, what priesthood, what moral order could endure a world in which no man was victim, no woman cursed, no child an innocent? A world where each of us, you, me, every traveler wandering in flesh, bore the guilt and glory of their own secret authorship. And so the texts were burned, the speakers vanished, the doctrine became a ghost, yet its echoes linger. In those who endure unspeakable loss and somehow rise, in those who facing annihilation sense a deeper meaning in their ruin, in the shiver at the edge of sleep when you wonder if your greatest fear was placed there by you. It forces us to question the very foundation of existence. If I am both the architect and the victim of my life, what then is fate? What is justice? What is God? Perhaps, traveler, there is no answer. Perhaps the question is the answer. And so I leave you with this. If tonight you remembered designing this life, every joy, every betrayal, every death you feared, would you choose it again, or would you burn the script?
And so, traveler, we've crossed the forgotten crossroads of ancient belief. From the sand-buried rites of Egypt to the marble whispers of Delphi, from the veiled Hermetic doctrines to the high temples of the Himalayas, each thread wove a single haunting truth. That perhaps, long before your first breath, you stood somewhere beyond time, choosing, negotiating, or forging in silence the very life you now endure. We've glimpsed the beliefs of those who claimed to remember, those who insisted that sorrow was no accident, that loss was no punishment, that you, were not cast adrift by cruel fate, but arrived here by a vow older than memory. And though the empires that birthed these secrets have fallen to dust, the ache remains. In the inexplicable pull toward certain people, in the wounds that bleed in familiar patterns, in the wordless moments when the world feels like a stage you built yet cannot escape. But I will not tell you what to believe. That was never the purpose. VoidTalk is not a sanctuary for answers, but a gateway for better questions. So I leave you with this. If your soul once chose this life, in its highest wisdom or its deepest madness, what does that make of the person you are now? A prisoner? A prophet? Or something else entirely? And if a part of you remembers, even a flicker, even a dream, speak it in the comments. Some things should not stay buried. If your mind still seeks, follow VoidTalk for the next forbidden truth. Until then, traveler, sleep lightly.